Do you want to do this? How about this? What about this? Hello there. Today I took the time to level up another Druid so that I can tell you guys the best way to level in order to make the Luck of the Claw build. I uploaded a video with this build recently, and I'm going to link it around here somewhere. And I had all of these comments asking me how you're supposed to level until you can get the weapon for the build. If you're already level 50 plus, don't worry about this video, go ahead and go over to the other one and check out the build. But if you need a Druid build to help you level until you get to that point, this is the one for you. Now I know this is what you guys may not have wanted to hear, but I did test the basic attack option and it doesn't work very well. It takes a little bit of time to get there, you have to get to maybe like level 30-40, and it requires things just like the other builds. I don't think that it's worth doing it early game. So what is my recommendation? I think that based on your RNG and what you end up getting, you should be choosing Pulverize or Tornado. If you get the aspect that allows your tornadoes to chase enemies, definitely go with Tornado as soon as possible. It's very good. On the other hand, if you get Shockwave or other Pulverize aspects, then go Pulverize. With both of these builds, I would highly recommend that you stat your gear in a way that allows you to transition to the other build as quickly as possible. That means sticking to stats that are usable in every build. Some examples are critical damage, vulnerable damage, cooldown reduction, critical hit, attack speed, and at least for the Tornado build, anything that benefits Storm abilities. I think that no matter what build you go, you should use Storm Strike as your first ability. You want to get this vulnerable as soon as possible, and you want to leave that on until you get to the point that you can start using the Exploit Glyph. Once you have the Exploit Glyph, you can swap that out for the Wild Storm Strike. Next, we have our core skills. From this point on, I'll start with the Tornado build, and then we'll do the Pulverize build. So first we'll put a point into Tornado, then Enhanced Tornado. And these two are not that great, because we already get a lot of vulnerable from our auto attack, but just so that we can make sure they're always vulnerable, we're going to go ahead and put one into there. Now we've opened up our defensive skills. I like to take Blood Howl first, because it's just a free potion that you can constantly use. Then get the second point, so that you can reduce the cooldown. And then we'll get the 20 Spirit, because that'll help us keep our tornadoes going. Next, we're going to put a point into Earthen Bulwark and Unstoppable. Under the companion tree, we're going to grab Poison Creeper, then the second point, and we'll increase our critical strike chance against enemies that are poisoned. Poison Creeper is going to act as a filler until we don't have room for it on our board anymore. Now that we have our other skills, we're going to put points into Tornado until we open up the next category. Here we want to pick up Hurricane, and we're going to get this point that reduces enemy damage. Now we're going to put a couple of passive points in so that we can reach our ultimate. Think one here, here, and then here until we open that up. For the ultimate, I'm recommending Cataclysm. And we'll put all 3 points in. Now that we have the extra vulnerability from Cataclysm, we're going to be removing a point from Tornado and we're going to be adding it to the slow. We can do that by putting a point somewhere else, removing that, then putting the point there, and removing that. The reason we wanted the slow is because we can now double this passive by having the enemies be slowed. That slow also synergizes well with Perfect Storm, which we're going to grab as our keystone passive for the moment. Past this point, you can max out your Tornado, and max out any passives that you find useful. For example, 9% movement speed here. Then we'll go back up here, and fill in more passive points. Damage against elites here. And these points here, to make sure the enemies stay vulnerable. And a chance for additional damage. By the way, I did miss these passives here. These are supposed to be put into the build much earlier on. Use your own discretion for this, but you should probably put them in after you have all of your main abilities on your bar. Now, as a must-have for this build, you're going to need Storm Chaser's aspect. This will ensure that your tornadoes actually chase enemies rather than going around randomly. These aren't necessary, but some nice-to-haves are Night Howler's aspect, Overcharged aspect, Mighty Storm's aspect, and if you have nothing else, Runeworker's Conduit's pretty fun. For the second build, you know how this goes. It's going to be Pulverize. Pulverize is strong straight out of the gate, so I'd recommend going Pulverize until you get direction from your drops. We're still going to start with the Storm Strike, so that we can get the early vulnerability. Then we're going to grab ourselves Pulverize, and we want to reduce enemy damage by 20%. Down here, same as the other build, we're going to grab ourselves the Blood Howl and 20 Spirit. We'll also be grabbing Earthen Bulwark and the extra point there. Again, use Poison Creeper to transition yourself until you get your ultimate. Go back and spend 2 points on Pulverize so that you can unlock the next category. Here, once again, we're going to grab Hurricane for the extra damage and damage reduction. At this point, if you're feeling strong, feel free to remove Poison Creeper and use Trample for the extra mobility and Spirit. At this point in the game, our Pulverize is close range, so we can grab some critical hit to close enemies and max out our Pulverize. Here you can choose Grizzly Rage or Cataclysm. I personally prefer Cataclysm until I get to the point that I have the aspects to make Grizzly Rage better. Now we'll add in our passives here. This will give us more damage and more uses of our Pulverize. Now that we've hit our Keystone passives, we're going to select Earth and Might. This has a chance to restore all of our Spirit, which is extremely useful for Pulverize. And we can also get guaranteed critical strikes for 5 seconds. You need to hit multiple enemies for this to proc consistently. There are multiple useful aspects for this build. One of them will make your Pulverize into an Earth ability, which will allow us to add these passive points over here. It'll also allow your Earth abilities to slow enemies. On either of these builds, if you need extra survivability, you can always build into Vigilance. Since we're using 2 defensive skills, this is very useful. Once you have those aspects that you need, you're going to want to put 3 points in here, 3 points in here, and put points in here based on the amount of Fortify you need to be able to maintain max Fortify. In order to help with the Fortify, this would be a good time to put the final point into your Bulwark. We can add the final point for the critical hit here, as well as some additional move speed. Down here, Defiance, Natural Disaster, and Resonance all pair pretty well with this build. And by these later levels, you should probably have removed Cataclysm and transitioned over to Grizzly Rage with those aspects that I spoke of. The most important aspect of this build is the Shockwave aspect. We also need the aspect of the Quicksand in order to slow enemies with Earth skills. That will activate certain passives in our tree. Aspect of Ursine Horror is very good because it turns our Pulverize into an Earth skill and leaves a damaging area on the ground after you use it. Aspect of the Rampaging Werebeast. Aspect of Retaliation is very good for increasing our damage. A nice defensive option is Aspect of Mending Stone. Some nice to haves are Balanced Aspect, Crash Stone Aspect, Night Howler's Aspect, and Cyclone Armor is decent if you're in a group. And that's about it for the builds. If you guys have any questions, make sure you leave a comment below and I'll try and get to them as soon as I can. If I don't get to them in the YouTube video, you should definitely stop by my Twitch. I answer questions there all the time. If you guys have any special requests for videos, let me know and I'll try and make some if I can. Once I finalize the Luck of the Claw build, I plan to make a video showing all of the details for that. I'll see you guys soon.